This is our homework set 42, matrix solutions to linear systems. Question 1 asks us to solve this system here, 2 by 2, using matrices. So let's start by writing the augmented matrix. So in the augmented matrix, I'm just going to put the coefficients. Here's the first column, the x column, 1 and 3. The y column, the coefficients are 1, -1. Now I'll draw the vertical bar separator to the constants 4 and -4. There's our augmented matrix. Now our plan is to use some row operations to get this matrix, the augmented matrix, into a matrix that looks like this. I'll get one on the diagonal. So 1, 0, 0, 1, and then after the vertical bar, this is the x column, so I'll have 1x equals that number, and then this is the y column. No x's, but 1y will equal that number. And then I can just read off the solution. So here's my plan. I think I can do that if I take -3 times this row and add it to this row, right? Because if I add these together, I want them to go to 0 for this row. So I'll multiply this by -3 and then add it here. So here's my plan. Row 2 is going to become -3 times row 1 plus row 2. Right, now here's what -3 times row 1 looks like. So just row 1 up here, multiply everything through by -3. So I'll get -3, -3, -12, and here is row 2. Row 2 is 3, -1, -4. So just add these together. We'll get 0, -4, -16. So here is our new matrix. I'll do it right up here. First row stays the same, 1, 1, vertical bar 4. But row 2, now row 2 here, row 2 became this, which is this one right here. All right, so this right here is what we're going to replace row 2 with, 0, -4, -16. So we've got some progress here. Now what I would like to do is, I've got the 1 and 0 here. I would like to get a 1 in this position, and then I'll worry about the 0 here. So to get a 1 in this position, I'm just going to divide this row by -4, and it just happens to divide evenly. All right, so here's the plan. Row 2 is going to become row 2 divided by -4. All right, so here's the new matrix now. First row, 1, 1, vertical bar, 4. Now, just divide everything in here by -4. Divide everything in row 2 by -4. I'll get 0, 1, 4. There's the new matrix. I think one more step. I need a 0 in that position. So how about if I multiply this by -1 and then add it to this? All right, so here's the new plan. Row 1 will become -1 times row 2 plus row 1. All right, does that make sense? I'm going to, okay, -1 times row 2. -1 times row 2 will give me a -1 here, and I'm going to add it to row 1. All right, so let's do that. Here's what that will look like. -1 times row 1 is going to, -1 times row 2. All right, so I'm doing this one right here. Just multiply everything here by -1. That'll give us a 0, -1, -4, and I'm going to add that to row 1. Now here's row 1, 1, 1, and 4. Add those together, I'll get a 1, a 0, and a 0. So our new matrix is this. All right, the first row, all right, so this is the new row 1 right here. 1, 0, vertical bar 0, and row 2 stays the same, 0, 1, 4. And I can read off the solution now. You see what this matrix says? Take it out of matrix form. It says this. This right here is the x column. This is the y column. So it says 1x plus 0y is equal to 0, which means that x is 0, right? That's gone. 1x is x. So x is 0. And then it says that 0x plus 1y is equal to 4. Right? 0x, that's gone. 1y is 4. So that implies that y is equal to 4. All right, so here's our solution. X is 0, Y is 4. If you want to write it as an ordered pair, be 0 and 4. And if you think of this as two lines, if we were to graph this, we'd have two lines. And where did those two lines intersect? Right at 0, 4. Question 2, let's solve this system using matrices. Now, here's what I'm going to do first. I know I want to get a 1 in this position. So actually, first of all, why don't we rewrite it into matrix form? So matrix form, just take the coefficients now. This is called the coefficient matrix. 2, negative 1, 1, negative 1, vertical bar, negative 6, and 4. Now, what I'm trying to get is this. I'm trying to get this. I want to convert this into this form. 1, 0, 0, 1, vertical bar, and some number here. All right, this number is going to be, I'll just write number. Okay, I want some number here and some number here. All right, that's where we're headed. So, first up, I want to get a 1 in that top left position. Now, our top left position is a 2. I could divide by 2, but that's going to give me a fraction. I don't really want to work with fractions. But I do have a 1 down here, in a way. So how about if I did this? What if I, first of all, just interchange row 1 and row 2? All right, so here's the plan. Row 1 will interchange with row 2. That'll give me this matrix. All right, so just switch the rows. Just interchange the rows. Negative 1, vertical bar, 4, and then 2, 1, negative 6. Now, I got a negative 1 here. What I really want is a 1. So how about if I multiplied that row by negative 1? So the new matrix is going to be this. Row 1 will become negative 1 times row 1. All right, now it's going to look like this. Just multiply everything in the first row by negative 1. We will get 1, 1, vertical bar, negative 4. Second row stays the same. 2, 1, negative 6. Okay, so a little bit of progress here. We've got a 1 here. Now I want a 0 here. So I can get a 0 there if I multiply the top row by negative 2 and then add it to this row. So the new row 2, all right, row 2 will become negative 2 times row 1 plus row 2. Does that make sense? I want a 0 here, so I have to add. So I'm going to, if I had a negative 2 here, negative 2 plus 2 is 0. But to get a negative 2 here, I have to multiply the entire row by negative 2. So row 2 is going to become negative 2 times row 2, negative 2 times row 1 plus row 2. Now, this part right here, negative 2 times row 1, that's going to look like this. Negative 2, positive 8, right? Multiply everything by negative 2. Row 2 stays the same, 2, 1, negative 6. Add those together, we'll get 0, negative 1, and 2. All right, so this is the new row 2. I'll write it up here. Here's the new matrix. 1, 1, vertical bar, negative 4, and the new row 2. 0, negative 1, 2. We're closer. What I want now is a 1 in this position. I've got a negative 1, so how about if I did this? Row 2 is going to become negative 1 times row 2. All right, so let's just do it. So I'll get first row 1, 1, vertical bar, negative 4. Now multiply everything in the second row by negative 1. How about 0, 1, negative 2. And now we just need a 0 in this position right here. So I can get that if I just add it to a negative 1 here. Now, it looks like we're going backwards, but we're really not. So how do I get a 0 here? I will multiply through this row by negative 1 and then add it to this. Negative 1 plus 1 will give me the 0. So row 1 will become, right, negative 1 times row 2 plus row 1. Right? Does that make sense? I'm going to multiply by negative 2 and then add it to row 1. So here's what this one looks like. Multiply row 2 by negative 1. I'll get 0, negative 1. I'm multiplying by negative 1, so I get a 2. Now, add it to row 1. Here's row 1. 1, 1, negative 4. Add them together, I'll get a 1, 0, negative 2. All right, so that is the new row 1. So here's our new matrix. 1, 0, vertical bar, negative 2, and the old row 2, 0, 1, negative 2. And from here, I can read off the solution, right? 1x, no y's, negative 2. So x is negative 2, no x's, 1y is negative 2, so y is negative 2. So here's what this tells us. It tells us that x is negative 2 and y is negative 2. And if I write it as an ordered pair, it would look like this. Negative 2, comma, negative 2. Question 3. Now, let's first of all get this right away into the augmented matrix form. So, vertical bar, now the x coefficients, 2 and 3. The y coefficients, 8 and 4. Vertical line, our separator. And then the constants, 10 and 1. Now, I know what I want here. I want a 1 in this position, right? Here's where we're headed. We're headed to this one. 1, 0, 0, 1, vertical bar, and then some number and some other number. That's where we want to go. So I need a 1 in this position. Now, I could just divide everything by 2. Why not? Everything's even, so let's do that. So how about this? Row 1 will become row 1 divided by 2. So the new matrix looks like this. So just look through and divide everything by 2. So how about 1, 4, vertical line, 5. I just divided everything by 2. Row 2 stays the same. 3, 4, negative 1. All right, now we've got the 1 in this position. I need a 0 here. So why don't we do this? Why don't we multiply this row by negative 3 and then add it to that row? Now, I'm going to say that up here. So row 2, right, I have to replace row 2 with what? Well, how about negative 3 times row 1, and then I'll add that to row 2. All right, so here's what it looks like. Here's this part right here. Negative 3 times row 1. So just pass a negative 3 through here. So multiply everything by negative 3. How about negative 3, negative 12, negative 15, and here's the current row 2, 3, 4, negative 1. You add those together, we'll get 0, negative 8, negative 16. All right, now that is the new row 2. So our new matrix is this. Row 1 is the same, 1, 4, vertical line, 5. The new row 2 is 0, negative 8, negative 16. Now, we're closer. I got a 1 here and a 0, so the first column is good. Now what I want is a 1 here and then a 0 here. So we can get a 1 here. How about if we divided row 2 by negative 8? All right, so here's the new plan. Row 2 is going to become the current row 2 divided by negative 8. It will look like this. I'll do it up here at the top. First row stays the same, 1, 4, vertical line, 5. And row 2, divide everything by negative 8. How about 0, 1, and 2? Okay, good. Now we just need a 0 here. So how about if we could do this? We'll multiply this second row by negative 4 and then add it to that first row. So new row 1. Row 1 will become negative 4 times row 2 plus row 1. So what does this part look like here? Just do this one. What does that look like? Just multiply by negative 4. We'll get 0, negative 4, negative 8. And then this part here, row 1, there's row 1. So it's 1, 4, 5. Add them together, we'll get 1, 0, negative 3. And that is the new row 1. So here's the new row 1. 1, 0, vertical bar, negative 3. And row 2 stays the same. 0, 1, 2. Okay, and I can read off the solution. What do we get here? X is equal to negative 3. Y is equal to 2. Or if you want ordered pairs, how about negative 3, comma, 2? And those are the first three questions on homework set 42.